What's going on, guys? My name is Tommy. Once again, happy Friday and welcome back to another episode of the Inner Sea region, a 5-minute tour. This episode comes to us by request today from the one, the only, Kirk McCullough. If you have a request for anything you'd like to see in any 3 of my video series, feel free to let us know. We'll get right on it. Today, we're going down to Galt. Although, personally, I gotta say, today, with a super busy schedule, I'm really happy that this is an episode of the Inner Sea region, a 5-minute tour, because it is 4:52 p.m. right now, and at the top of the hour, I'm starting a one-shot over at the end of Planar Crossroads, the struggles of an up-and-coming YouTuber who still must work to feed himself. And with all the gaming and all the gaming friends I've made with this YouTube channel, I have learned one thing: time is very precious. So let me say, before we go too far in, that once again, this episode of the 5-minute tour is brought to you by our patrons, the Inn of Planar Crossroads. Don't forget, guys, net neutrality stands to be repealed in like a week or so, and it's really important we have our voices heard, because net neutrality getting repealed affects every single solitary person living in the United States, and believe it or not, some people outside of the United States that can hear my voice. So please, if you would, follow the links in the description, have your voice heard. If you have the time, make a couple phone calls. The internet needs your help. But I digress. Let's talk about Galt, which, by the way, just going to throw it in here now, totally revolutionary France. Viva la révolution! Galt is a land where once high ideals have been laid low and mob rule has led to chaos. Galt was once a vassal nation of Cheliax, but also known for its freethinkers, poets, and artists. After the death of Aridin and the rise of House Thrun in Cheliax, the people of Galt decided to throw off their foreign rulers, along with their own nobles who had colluded with them. A bloody revolution followed in which many, many nobles lost their heads. The problem with that was the executions didn't stop the bloodshed, and within 5 years, the severed heads of the ministers of the first Galtan government rolled down the steps of the guillotine. In the 50 years since, over a dozen governments have ruled Galt, rising and falling like the waves of a stormy sea. Galt has always been a nation of freethinkers and radicals renowned for brilliant poets, artists, and philosophers whose ideas shaped the politics of the whole of Avestan. Even when conquered by Cheliax during the even-tongued conquest, which began in 4081 AR, following Cheliax's declaration of independence during the Taldan War with Kadira, Galt still maintained this reputation and attracted free thinkers to its renowned universities and rogues to its pristine woodlands. Galt's tumultuous fall into mob anarchy began with the ascension of House Thrun in Cheliax in 4640. With the blatant devilry and capricious cruelty of their new masters, dissent began to bubble up in Galt. One of the most elegant expressions of this was by the half-elf philosopher Hossiter, who wrote the scathing political essays Imperial Betrayal. These essays helped increase the dislike of Imperial Cheliax, and they spread dissent across Andoran and even into the heart of Cheliax itself. Then, Darl Jubanich, the poet of Woodsedge, capitalized on this by publishing his own attack on Cheliax and the very concept of the divine right of kings called On Government. This created further hatred of the new government of Cheliax, which quickly blossomed into an all-out rebellion as mobs tore down the symbols of Chelish oppression and executed those they felt were sympathizers, mostly the nobility. Queen Abigail responded heavy-handedly to these rebellions, which only further served to further incite the population. Soon Hossiter and Jubanich, along with other heroes of the revolution, formed the Revolutionary Council to rule the newly independent nation of Galt. One of the council's first decrees was the creation of the final blades, Galt's feared guillotines. Little did they understand the beast they had created, for within 5 years the first Revolutionary Council had been overthrown by another set of bloodthirsty revolutionaries who wanted change. And with this, we have the never-ending cycle of bloodshed and revolution in Galt that has led to its decline as a nation inhabited by mobs of paranoid revolutionary fanatics. The only stability in the government of Galt are the Grey Gardeners, the executioners of the place. They maintain their power and safety through anonymity, as no Grey Gardener has ever unmasked himself. The current chairman of the Revolutionary Council is Corin Goss, a talented demagogue whose primary tactic for manipulating the angry mobs around him is to redirect their hatred. He is currently trying to shift the blame for all of Galt's problems to neighboring nations, particularly Andoran, who's been cautious of Galt ever since the revolution broke into bloody mayhem, as Anduin was founded on pretty much the same principles that founded Galt. Despite Goss's talent as a demagogue, his government could collapse at any time should a new faction gain the people's trust and come to power. And really, I think this is what we do with our players if we decide we're going to go hang out in Galt for a while, because like we're saying, every 2 or 3 years there's a new government in place. This region is described as chaotic neutral, and that is basically the definition thereof. There is no solid, everything changes, and if you want to bring your players in, this is probably the place in the Inner Sea region the most where you're going to need the random tables with random NPC names and random faction names that are going to rise and fall in power. And if you've got players who love revolution, maybe even if you've got an army of Hell Knights that need to bring things back under control, Galt is definitely the place to go for this. Of course, France's revolution lasts from 1789 until 1799 instead of forever and ever and ever, but it's the same idea. The abolition of the French monarchy, the establishment of a secular and democratic republic that becomes increasingly authoritarian, and radical social change in France during this time. It's the same idea as what's going on here in Galt, and that makes one wonder if maybe if Galt didn't move the clock forward about 50 years, if someone like Napoleon Bonaparte might rise up, unite Galt, and start carving up the Inner Sea in his image. Please, Paizo, give me that AP. That sounds so sweet. But what do you guys think about Galt? Have you ever adventured here? Have you guys ever been a part of one of those bloody revolutions? And I guess most importantly, are there actually stats for a guillotine somewhere in some Pathfinder book? Because I'd really love to see how much damage one of those things can do to a given human neck. If you've got anything to add, feel free to throw it in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos. The next episode of the 5 Minute Tour drops next Friday.